Hello, welcome to the latest edition of the Sky Accountants podcast. I'm Ashley Carmichael, and today I'm talking with Paul Dowler. Paul's a fellow director and client manager at Sky Accountants. Hello, Paul.
G'day, Ash. How you going?
Good, good. Now, today we're talking about budgets, all things
Ooh.
budgets. Um, so, for the uninitiated, can you tell us what a budget is?
Yep, definitely. So budget's really nothing more than a prediction of the future in financial terms. There's quite a few different types of budgets. However, the most common that you might be familiar with will be a profit and loss budget, a cash flow budget, and maybe even a capital expenditure or a CapEx budget. For some industries, especially the construction industry, they probably should be looking at project budgets as well in conjunction with those three. Um, a profit and loss budget is a summary of the expected income and expenses over a specified financial period. A cash flow is a little bit different. It looks at the estimated cash receipts, so money in, and cash expenditure that are expected to occur during, again, a certain period. This will include balance sheet items such as loan repayments, tax payments, asset purchases, and capital expenditure. And then just that third one, a CapEx expenditure budget is a formal plan that states the amount and the timing of fixed assets purchases by an organisation.
So, like, clearly there's a bit of, differences in those types of budgets. Like,
Yeah.
what would you recommend that a business uses, or, when would they use each type?
Yeah. The ideal answer is probably all three. The profit and loss, which is the income and expenses, the cash flow, and then probably also if you do purchase a lot of large capital items, that's probably one that would be worthwhile. And then
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the construction industry or anyone who does projects, I think they're paramount in knowing the profitability and budgeting, the outcome that you want for those projects. Because you don't want to get to the end of the year. You want to look at which projects are doing well, or are they doing as expected, um, as they're rolling on, not just at the end of the year, looking at the consolidated.
Mm. And look, I'm a big believer in doing both the cash flow
Yeah.
and the profit and loss. And I'm sure you see this a lot, but I certainly do,
Yep.
which is that what is showing in the profit and loss can often
Mm.
be quite dramatically different due to,
Yep.
timing and all sorts of other things from a cash flow point of view.
Correct.
Um, so you can have a fantastic profit
Yeah.
showing in your budget, but the cash flow may not be
Yeah.
so great. Mm,
Equipment loans are the ones that come to mind, that you might have a good
mm,
profit, but if you've got a lot of equipment loans, the principal payment is not represented in as an expense. The interest is, but
mm.
not the loan repayment. So a question that a lot of clients often say is, I made that much profit. Where's my money gone?
Yeah, that's heard that one before.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's not an easy question to answer, is it?
Yeah.
Um, but having that cash flow budget and being able to compare to it certainly does help to answer it, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely.
So tell me about the process to put together a good budget. Like,
Yep.
first and foremost, when's the right time to do it?
The right time,
Mm,
um, ideally, I mean, we work on financial years, so before the start of the financial year would be ideal. Planning the year ahead. However, if you've missed that opportunity, that doesn't mean you should be waiting until the next financial year to start that process. So the short answer to that is, if you haven't started, then it's today.
yeah.
um, but to get yourself into a rhythm, I mean, financial years work quite well. Then you can compare to prior years, and 12 months is a good yardstick to measure your performance, I guess.
Yeah. And so how do you recommend that a business go about putting together their budgets?
Yeah. Firstly, you can't build a good budget in a silo. So you sort of have to talk to all the key people in the organization to get their knowledge and insight about what is happening on the ground and what they see coming up ahead. As part of this, you'll need to develop a decent understanding of the key drivers of the organization, and the financial outcomes that those key drivers are going to drive. We see too many people looking at last year's results and adding CPI or adding a nominal percentage amount. It just really doesn't cut it if you want the budget to be meaningful and accurate. Developing the understanding of the key drivers is really important to be able to optimize the outcomes. It means you know what levers to pull and when to pull them. So once you've got this knowledge, you can build a bit of a budget model that will give you the most accurate prediction of the organization's results. So then once you've got your first budget model, you need to analyze it. You need to see what the results are. For example, does the profit represent a sufficient return on investment? Does the budget need tweaking in that regard? And then this analysis helps to identify what actions need to be implemented before you even begin and can then be factored into a revised budget model. For example, it might show you need to make some hires at different points. It might show some lull periods during the year where you might need to actively seek some finance or an overdraft facility. But once you've done all of that process, you need to take the budget to your stakeholders and walk them through it. Make sure they understand the budget, what it's asking of them, and if you have their buy-in, which is pretty important. You don't want to be going to people with a budget that's unrealistic, and if you don't get buy-in, it's going to be meaningless and probably won't eventuate.
Yeah, there's a sort of a level of using the budget for accountability, isn't it? And
Yeah,
if people don't have that buy-in, that's going to be a tough part.
Yeah, the budgets help set a yardstick, I think, as well, and it gives people direction in knowing what their KPIs are. So I find budgets, so long as they're not unrealistic, they drive that achievement, that performance to hitting the mark.
Yeah. They help people to know what they need to do.
Yeah.
Definitely. Which is a really great aspect of doing it. And so that's all, that process is fairly involved, obviously. Are there any tools that a business can use to help with it?
There's a heap of online cloud apps. A couple come to mind. Fathom, Castaway is another one. They can be quite useful in some organizations and save some time. Just depends on how the model in that tool is developed. Some look at historical data, so it goes against that, understanding the key drivers, not just looking at last year's and adding a margin. I think you still can't go past a good old-fashioned Excel spreadsheet, to be honest. And Excel's quite powerful with rules and formulas. So I'm not for or against. Obviously, if you're using software and it provides some benefits, then take it. But failing that, you can still do it with an Excel spreadsheet at
So
no cost.
So a business doesn't need to invest
No.
loads of money in budgeting software. They can do it with the tools that they've got.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So that that really makes it accessible
to everyone.
Yeah. So you've gone through that process. You've prepared your budget. You've got sign off from all your key stakeholders.
Yep.
Then what? What do you do with it?
You don't just put it in the top drawer, Ash, and then look at it at the end of the year. It needs to be used as your guide to making decisions throughout the year. For example, one of your team members comes to you and wants to, spend some money for the business or an investment. has it been budgeted for? So it helps you to make decisions throughout the year. The other thing is you need to be looking at or regularly reporting the results, your actual results against the budget. So what I like to do is you can load these budgets into your accounting software, the P&L one, profit and loss budget. And there's some reports that we can generate where we look at the actuals for the month against the budget for the month and the actuals year to date compared to the budget year to date. So I guess the short answer is, yeah, regular review of actuals to budget is probably the best outcome. Not
So yeah, that monitoring, how we're tracking against it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I assume there's some actions that businesses should take if their reporting is showing that they are sort of out of kilter with their budget. What should they be doing?
Well, firstly, what you can measure, you can manage. So if you're not hitting a certain line item on your budget, the first step is to identify it and then take action. At least investigate why we're not hitting the budget or the outcome that we thought we were going to achieve. If you're ahead of your budget, that's a good result, but that may also pose some other areas to look at. Are we under-resourced? If we're hitting sales targets, do we have stock, processes, people to deliver this better than expected outcome that we thought? And then the other one that comes to mind is if there's a certain period during that financial year, if that's the period we're looking at, where cash flow is a little bit tight, do we need to start looking at funding facilities, knowing that there could be a period maybe over Christmas where cash flow is a bit lean?
Yeah. So it's really giving you that forward-looking approach rather than sort of rear view mirror.
Yeah.
Looking at my numbers, you're sort of saying use that as a tool for what you do next, help you to identify what you do next.
It's not easy to make changes in an organization. In today's environment, there's a lot of external factors, some that are out of your control, some that are within your control, but you want to be well positioned to be able to make those decisions in real time, and comparing against to a forecast or a budget is going to give you that timeliness.
And look, one thing that I notice, Paul, and I'm sure you do too, is that when a business has a go at budgeting for the first time, they're often seeing quite a lot of variances to that budget. Is that a bad thing? Does it need to be perfect?
No. The first budgets are not easy. They can be confronting, like you said, Ash. The best skill is probably developed through the process of the budget. You just need to have a go, see what works, what doesn't. A budget can have many revisions throughout the year if things arise or you need to make adjustments based on factors that have come to light. Sorry
to interrupt you there, Paul, but so in a way you're sort of saying that that attempting it, you sort of learn how to do it better. You get that better understanding.
Yeah. My experience with working with clients and budgets for their organization, the process, especially the first one, is the most important. It's looking at line by line, looking at the different drivers of the business, and from that, those questions that we may ask comes answers, and some thinking around, okay, well, what's my sales going to be? What's my purchases? What's my overheads, etc.
And so the business, just purely by doing the exercise, arguably they have a better understanding of what makes their business tick. Is that a fair statement? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
Well, that's got to be a good thing, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got a budget, we're monitoring it, we're reporting against it. Um, it's giving us some insights about what we should do next.
Yep.
But you mentioned that, with that first budget in particular is important and a bit challenging
Yeah.
for an organization. Um, what can businesses do to get started? Like, how can they get started?
Yep.
Um,
Call your accountant. we just start those discussions initially, and your accountant's probably the best position to be helping you with the budget, um, and to probably go through that initial process with you, and then
mm,
maybe go further than that to you know, can help you with the accountability or the monthly catch ups or the quarterly catch ups to look at the variances and to look at some solutions or anything that we may need to bring to light where we can improve those numbers.
mm. Yeah, that accountability piece is really important, isn't it? That, you know, sitting down, reviewing your numbers,
Yeah,
and, you know, having somebody that can help you remain accountable to those numbers.
yeah,
It
it
can
goes a long
be
way.
it
A
can
long
be
way.
unpleasant
Correct.
when the numbers are not great. It can
Yeah,
be quite uncomfortable, but I find that it's through that discomfort that you can make the gains, that you can
yeah,
address the issues.
yep. I
Um,
agree with that 100%, Ash.
and so, it's useful to get someone who's experienced involved at the beginning, but can a business, go it alone with their budgeting? Is that something that most people would have the capability to do?
Everyone's different. I think if you haven't done a budget before for your business, I'd probably seek some professional assistance. And once you get a feel for the process, the template, if you're using Excel or software, then you can go it alone. Um, a lot of our clients that seek our assistance for the budget often come back for some accountability meetings, whether that's a monthly or a quarterly catch up. They find that the accountability meetings, reporting, help them to stay on track, um, and sort of, focus on the areas of improvement and basically just having a discussion about what's working, what's not working, and what changes do we need to make.
Look, I have to say, that's one of my favorite parts of
Mm,
the job is, you know, having those regular catch-ups with clients and, reviewing their numbers and
yeah,
having those discussions around action plans.
yeah,
That's where I feel like um, I find it's interesting for a start, but I feel like that's where we can have some really
yeah,
good input,
yeah,
you know, with ideas and what we've seen other clients do. They're sort of sharing of ideas from, even from different industries
mm,
or areas that, might sort of be a little spark of an idea that helps the business go ahead.
yeah.
Mm.
Agree. So we're heavily involved with some clients, but right down to helping with the initial budget and giving them the tools that they need. It does depend on the skill set of the person in the business, but that's a resource that they've got options with us, I guess, as an accountant that they can use us
Mm.
for as much or as little as they like,
Yeah,
as long as they're getting value.
Yeah, so it can be almost like as an education piece of, you know, helping them get up to speed so they can do it on a DIY basis, or you know, working in partnership with them on an ongoing basis. So,
Yeah.
um,
Good.
in your opinion, Paul, um, do enough businesses prepare budgets?
No.
Uh, uh,
um,
let me ask again, in your
yeah.
opinion, how many businesses should prepare budgets?
I'd say maybe not all. But nearly every business should probably do a budget.
Mm,
And it ranges from startups that might be cash poor in the beginning to big organizations with many divisions. So I guess, yeah. I mean, the correct answer is probably everyone should do the budget process.
mm.
Um, but there are times where some businesses maybe don't need to, or
Yeah,
they're
we'll
comfortable,
give
or
the 1%ers
yeah,
a
one,
break, but
yeah,
no, I think it's a really important aspect of business. It's um, a, an important source of information to make good decisions.
yeah,
You know, without that sort of insight about where the business is heading,
yeah.
I just don't know how an owner or a manager can make good decisions.
When there's a lot of uncertainty, it's even more important to be doing a budget and maybe factoring in some best case scenarios, some worst case scenarios. We can't predict the future. There's some external forces out there which may, divert the business off course. But if you can do a budget to best predict the future, I think you're in a strong position.
Hmm. Well, there you have it. I think those are some wise words, and um, you
Thanks.
know, thanks for sharing your insights with us today, Paul. I think people will get a bit out of that, and of course, you know, if people do want to know more about the budgeting process, or um, want some help with it, um, of course, they should get in touch with us. Um,
Thanks for having me, Ash.
Thanks for the chat today, Paul. I really appreciate you coming along. Um, and we'll talk to you next time.
Will do.
Thanks.
See you, Ash.
Bye.